Good afternoon again. Assalamu alaikum. For those who are not here,
وعليكم السلام أستاذ.
عليكم السلام أستاذ.
for today's lecture, it will be a continuation for the first book, which is entitled Sewing. To refresh your memory that the novel is divided into 3 books, and we are still in the first book, chapter 4. The chapter 4 is entitled Mr. Bounderby or Bounderby. Either pronunciation is correct. This character, as you know, is the major character, one of the major characters in the novel, and we have said that he may be could be the villain as Mr. Grandigrand, but Bounderby is also number 1 in villainity. For if we compare with Mr. Grandigrand, he is Mr. Grandigrand. We said that he believes in fact, but still he has affection. He has some sort of kind heart, and we will find out why he has that kind heart and what situation. As I told you, chapter 4 is dedicated for Mr. Bounderby, because the title of the chapter is Bounderby. So the chapter here starts with the quotation from the book. The culprits taken home, self-made bully Bounderby and feeble Mrs. Grandigrand. Sissy Job must be expelled. Louisa, Bounderby's bet. All these are taken or references for the content of the interpretation of the title of the chapter itself. And this chapter, Mr. Bounderby, and before explaining, I have told you previously about this character. He has a story that is used in the novel as a motif. A motif is something that in literature that is repeated all the time, several times, repeated over and over. We call it motif. And this motif is working closely just to develop the theme and the events of the novel. The story of Mr. Bounderby, he says that he was abandoned, deserted, left by his mother when he was infant. It is a lie. Don't believe everything he says. Whatever he says is what? Bunch of lies. Bunch of lies. And we will say why does he lie? Because every liar has a justification, has reasons for his lies. So back to the Bounderby's lie. He says that his mother, left him in a ditch while he was an infant. An infant, you know, infant?
Yes.
A very small child. Even he cannot feed himself. He needs his mother to feed him. And I got up from that ditch and I have made myself. So he has considered himself as self-made man. Self-made man. And he's bragging, boasting, showing off of this lies. Okay? But we know as readers through the narration that it is not the truth. But why does every liar, we lie, sometimes we lie, but not a major or big, we call it big lies. No, we have certain lies that is different, maybe about trivial things that does not affect, or it doesn't have consequences on others, negative consequences. All of us, in a condition or another, we lie. But as I told you, we have what is called white lies. White lies. And certainly when we lie, we have a justification, we have reasons. Why do we lie? Either to make fun with our friends, or make a prank, or to hide something from him, or in certain situation to justify your action, to minimize, to decrease the reaction of your friends from the lie if he reveals or discovers the truth. For Mr. Bounderby, he lies either he has a psychological defect, defect, disorder. He's not normal, he's abnormal, to specify something in himself, sickness in general, or he lies to show for us, or to justify his wealth, and to show the reason of the worker's poverty, to justify his wealth and to show the worker's poverty. Let us take an example from our life here. We have people, certain corrupted people, and they are within, overnight, he becomes what? A billionaire, not a millionaire, a billionaire. He has billions of Iraqi dinars, especially the politicians. When he wants to justify for people, if they ask him about the source of his wealth, he's going to lie and telling people about what? That he has working very hard, and he tries to what? To design a very perfect lie. Sometimes he himself believes in the lie he tells for people, that he's really worked hard and get this money. But if we come to the fact, we say that we know that it comes from corruption. Anyway, so the two reasons for Bounderby's lie is to justify his wealth and to justify or to show the workers' poverty. Workers' poverty, saying for people, see, they are not like me. He means the workers. They didn't work very hard like me. I depend on myself, and I work day and night, 7 days a week, and diligently, then I stand on my feet. So Mr. Bounderby here is lecturing Mrs. Grand Grind. We are introduced for Mrs. Grand Grind, Mr. Grand Grind wife, in her drawing room on his own merits. As I told you, he's talking about his merits, the privileges, what he has done. Now we have a description of Mr. Bounderby. He is a big, loud man who is boasting. You know boasting? You know boast? B-O-A-S-T? Yes, what is it?
A picture on the walls.
No, boasting, when someone talks about things that he doesn't do. He makes himself the hero. He has done great things. You got the meaning? Showing off. You know showing off?
No.
Sir,
طلعتوها سنتنس شوفوها.
about saying herself, about self.
Yes, yeah, he's
يعني
showing off, he's bragging, he talks, he praises himself all the time, that he says I do this and I do this and etc. And it is, as I told you, it is a bunch of lies. It is not true, but
and
still he is
change
boasting.
your life
Yes,
when
احنا
he
we,
a child
in our
when
culture we say
yeah,
we call it what? ينحثل يعني
change
واحد ينحثل بس كذب.
yes change her life when he
Okay.
was child and but
Yes. And boasting with lots of vivid detail about the incredible early hardships he claims and the suffering he has faced. He tells Mrs. Gradgrind his story about his mother when abandoned him in infancy. And this is a lie, because imagine a man who was infant. You know infant. Infant is about يعني, one year, his age, 1 year and less. يعني في مرحلة الرضاعة. Still a baby in feeding stage. And this is the one of the biggest lies that he tells for Mrs. Gradgrind. Since he rising to eminence as a banker, now he is a banker and manufacturer, has several factories. Mrs. Gradgrind is described here as a little, thin, white, pink-eyed bundle of shawls, of surpassing feebleness, mental and bodily. And here he seizes the opportunity to talk with Mrs. Gradgrind. Mrs. Gradgrind is described in the book, as I told you right now, this is a quotation from the novel. She is thin and she is disordered in her what? Mental and physical, which means that her body, she is sick in her body and even her mind. She cannot think well. She has some sort of defect, disorder in her mind, so that she keeps quiet, never defends Mr. Bounderby when he talks about his defeats, only listens to his nonsense, who offers no resistance. She never defeats to Bounderby's bullying talk. During this time, Gradgrind comes home with the culprits. Culprits means the people who made, or the children who made something wrong. Bounderby eyes Louisa. And this is the first time Bounderby meets Louisa. And here, this is we have what is called the foreshadowing for the next marriage between Bounderby and Louisa. And you remember, as I told you, Bounderby is twice age as Louisa. For example, Bounderby in his 60s and Louisa maybe in her 50s, 15 years old, and he's 60, sorry. Imagine the difference between the two.
Doctor, not 25?
Yes, 20. I mean, it is she's too young.
Yes.
She is too young. Twice as the age of Mr. Bounderby. And Gradgrind here and Bounderby agree that the circus, now they are discussing the issue of the circus, which has what? According to them, they consider the circus had bad influence on the children. Why? Because circus is a source of entertainment, amusement, imagination, fancy. And it has an influence as literature. And they decide to remove the circus child, Sissy Job, from the model school. And before they set off to see her father, Bounderby kisses Louisa And this is what another foreshadowing for his marriage. But Louisa what hates, detests this kind of behavior. Bounderby is used by Dickens as a satirical portrait. You know, satirical means something to criticize, something to criticize. Portrait of the type of factory owner who showed off early struggles in order to justify his wealth. You see here, to justify his wealth and his workers' poverty. These are the two reasons for his lying. On the other hand, Mrs. Gradgrind has been ground in her husband's scientific mill. So who is responsible for brainwash of Mrs. Gradgrind? The husband himself. Because she lives with him in the same house, and he talks about every time about facts, science, statistics, figures. Her mind tends to be what? Idle, out of order. You know, out of order? Idle. يعني ما يشتغل. Inoperational. Mind. And here she is chosen by the writer, by Dickens, to show the influence of industrial revolution on people. How that industrial revolution transformed people and turned them into what? We have said machine-like humans. Here Mrs. Gradgrind like a robot. Like a robot. She is programmed, for example, to cook, clean, obey orders. That's all. She is unable, for example, to interpret, to think, or to use her intellectual faculties to analyze. She's like a receiver. She's like a receiver. She receives things, but never, there is no prediction, there is no output. There are examples here of Dickens' recurring tags. Also, Dickens used here what is called tags. Tag character. You know tag? T-A-G.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes when we buy new clothes, we will find small information in these clothes. These are called tags. So Dickens here gives them tags. He calls them by different names. For example, Bounderby is the bully of humility. The bully of humility. Others, for example, Mrs. Gradgrind is tagged or labeled as go and be something logical. Go and be something logical. And these are a quotation taken directly from the novel. Readers who are not acquainted to Dickens may be surprised by the dramatic impact of Bounderby and Mrs. Gradgrind. But Mr. Bounderby talk may convince us. Why? Because he becomes a professional liar. Becomes a professional liar. Sometimes you have met some people who are famous for their lying. When he tells a lie, you feel that this is a perfect story, and you cannot imagine, you cannot think about this to be a lie. You take it for granted. You believe it. And what is the reason? First, because you have a good intention the listener has a good intention for that person when he talks. But at the side of the liar, he becomes what? A master, a professional liar. He tells the lies that makes us what? Believe in his lies. And here, if you read for the first time as readers for Mr. Bounderby, you believe, unless you discover, find out in the middle of the novel that all what he have said is what? Bunch of lies. But Mrs. Grandrine listeness has a strange force of its own. We get an alarming sense of her disordered mind. She has a disordered mind. And nothing in her mind, only facts. And we have talked about another issue, which is the names of Grind's two younger children, Adam Smith and Malthus. And we have said that those two names are related with utilitarianism, and they refer to the utilitarianism and self-interest, or laissez-faire, which is a French word, means leave alone. This is available in the PDF file. And in fact, you know, the utilitarianism is based on self-interest. Self-interest is something that you think about yourself. It's kind of hypocrisy. Selfishness is a kind of selfishness because you think about yourself only. You don't care about the society. You don't care about your friends or any other else. No, you are caring only about your benefit. That's all. And here, Dickens attacked these ideas, these philosophies, because fact is a representation here for this philosophy. For chapter 5, chapter 5 is entitled The Keynote. Chapter 5 is entitled The Keynote. And before the continuing to the chapter 5, when you attend the lecture and you leave in the first half or the second half, at the beginning or in the middle or in the end, before closing the lecture, still you are what? You are absent. I have the application here, and this application tells me that, for example, I'm going to pick a name and give you when she is or he is entered and when he is out. Okay, without calling the names, but this application tells me that, for example, Maha has entered at this time and left at this time. Exactly. And if it is not a lecture, I'm sorry to tell you that I'm not going to count it as attendance. يعني مو تحضر لي 5 دقائق أو ربع ساعة أو نص ساعة وبعدين مالك خلق ضجت وطلعت وتاخذ درجات حالك حال اللي باقي هو اللي يعني متوطن هنا بالمحاضرة. Am I clear? Am I clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, clear.
Yes, Doctor. Wow. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So for chapter 5, the keynote, we have said earlier in the previous lectures that the title of the chapters has something to refer to the content of the chapter itself. So the keynote is a reference for the city, the coke town, city of smoke and endless labor, ground grind and bounded by meet sissy job. Coke town, we have talked about what does the coke town mean? Coke town, it is two words merged together and modified. You know, since they are imaginative, the names are here imaginative, so they are meant to be something. Cooktown, it is taken from the word cook, as I told you previously. Cook, you know cook?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
When you cook something. So it is Cooktown, which means that the people are cooked here in this city, in these factories. They are cooked every day. Not only workers, even the people of society, common people in the city, in the whole city. Okay, so the keynote is the Cooktown. What's wrong with the Cooktown? A blackened and polluted industrial town full of factories, mills, chapels. If you imagine, just make an image in your mind that the factories are working 24 hours without stop. 24 hours. And there are what? A kind of black smoke comes out from these factories. And this smoke covers the city as what? As a cloud, as a big, huge serpent, snakes that coil, concentrates, suffocates people. This is very, very beautiful image. The smoke is like snakes, huge snakes that concentrates. Sometimes you have seen on TV some reports when the snake attack, it coils, تلتف يعني, it coils and concentrates, تعصر. The prey, the victim. So the smoke here is like a very huge snake that concentrates, suffocate the city. As I told you, because the factories never stop. In addition to that, we have mills. Mills are places that used to grind wheat and barley for flour to make bread. We are told that the factory owners mercilessly enforce the hard facts of industrial life. These ugly sides shown by Dickens to make us sympathize, to side with him against industrial revolution and the transformation that made in the life of people at that time. So, according to him, Cooktown is a town for work and nothing else. Either work or die. Like the grind children, the workers of Cooktown desperately need an occasional holiday. There is no holiday for them. As I told you, 24 hours, 30 days per month. They are working till your death. There is a break for what is called lunch. Grind and bounded by meet sissy job. She is carrying a bottle of 9 oils for her father's bruises and sprains from the ring. And they want to gather people in the public house. They want to tell people something. The storyteller here, the narrator, is trying to attract our attention and share his view of Coketown and to judge it. He gives us the details of the town. You cannot, for example, judge something you have no idea about. Before coming to English department, you cannot judge about the department, right? Because you don't have information. But if you are told by your friend or ex-graduate and telling you, don't come to the department, maybe he warns you, don't come to the department. The teachers are too bad. The department is very difficult and you are going to suffer. You have certain information about English department and you are able to judge, to give a decision. Okay, the decision does not come groundless. I cannot judge Ade or Fatma or Mustafa. I cannot judge them unless I know them or hear about them or hear from others about them. And this is the idea here. Dickens or the narrator here, we have no idea, the narrator, Dickens or another character, is telling us details about the Coketown to share us with the information with us to create our judgment. And the description here is very realistic about pollution and monotony to create a nightmare-like vision about the city. But despite that, despite the focus on the fact side, imagination also stems up, buds up, stems up from the middle of facts. How is that? By transforming the physical details of the town into, that is fact, into images. This is quotation, into images. How can you, for example, describe someone through images? When someone asks you about, for example, Sajjad, you are going to say Sajjad, he's a tall guy, he's about 22 years old, and so other characteristics of Sajjad. These characteristics or features are what? We call them images, mental images. My point is that even here we have imagination. Bounderby and Grand they are trying to abolish imagination, but still it is here. For example, columns of smoke. We have the description of smoke become coiling, as I told you, coiling serpents. You know serpents? You know serpents?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Hamida. What is this serpent?
The servant خادم.
No, serpents. Something that when bites kills. طلع مو سؤال حزورة. When bites.
Snakes.
Yes, snakes. Serpents, snakes. We call it in our culture الصل يعني الأفعى القاتلة. Okay, so the image here describes the smoke become coiling serpents and what other? A steam engine piston continually going up and down is like the head of an elephant in a state of alchemy madness. We have another image which is the piston. احنا نسميه بالعامية البستم مالت المحرك. But imagine it is a factory. The piston is very huge, very big. That this is digs day and night, up and down. And this movement is compared to an elephant An elephant, a huge animal that is moving fastly and shakes the ground. Shakes the ground 24 hours. For example, if your home near the power plants, the Korean power plants، إذا بيته واحد قريب عن المحطة بحي الفرات أو على طريق الحمد ما أعرف محطة الكهرباء قريب، من تتقرب عليها راح تلقي الأرض تهتز لين نهار أبد ما تروح. بالفعل التوربينز due to turbines, the engine, they are working 24 hours and this is shaking all the time. So these two keynotes images are to be repeated like a refrain. They are going to be what? Repeated throughout the novel like a refrain. And in respect to fact and rules, the religious life in Cooktown, the chapels of the 18 religious denominations all look like warehouses and all fail in their Christian duty to minister the workers. And here this is a direct criticism by Dickens for religious institution. He says that the building of the chapels, like churches, similar to warehouses, stores, المخازن. They are what? A kind of something referring to the Industrial Revolution. And this religious institution has done nothing for the workers. So that if, in the late Victorian age, many people, and with the coming of the Darwinian theory, they lost their faith in religion, in church, and turned to atheist. They believe there is no God. Atheist means there is no God. Atheism, there is no God. And we may ask why. Because they say that if there is real religious institution, they have to defend the poor workers, the conditions, the bad conditions they're suffering. They have to make a stand. And this is true, right? So what is the benefit of the religious institution if it doesn't interfere in the critical conditions of the workers? Okay, so it is a harsh and direct criticism by Dickens. And so that even he takes the words ending this paragraph says, world without end, amen. This is a quotation. World without end, amen. And this is something serious. Which means what? World without end. Which means that suffering of people, of society at that time is endless. Is endless. There is no end for the workers' suffering. And these words taken from Book of Common Prayer of the Church of England. Using here irony. Using here the religious language ironically. The last chapter, chapter 6, which is Sleary's horsemanship. Sleary's horsemanship. Sleary is a character who is responsible, the manager of circus. And here in this chapter we have Sissy's father disappeared, and the Grandigrand takes charge of Sissy to train her in his system. Mr. Sleary, circus master, explains his philosophy of amusement. Mr. Joe, Sissy's father, disappeared from Bigas's Arms. Bigas's Arms is the name of the hotel they are, or the place they are living there. And Bigas's here is a mythological creature with which means the horse with two wings. You have seen this in the movie. Grand Grind and and Bounder by are joined by two other performers. Here in this chapter, we have what is called the jargon, the use of circus terms, the words that used by circus people. They explain that Job has been doing badly in his acts, so that he takes his dog, Mary Legs, and leaves Sissy. Sissy accepts Mr. Grandgrind's effort to take her, and the circus here is contrasted to the Cocktown, which is very important. Just a moment, sorry. Sorry for keep you waiting. So here we have a comparison, or the circus is contrasted to Cocktown in different ways. For example, in Cocktown, the relations of master and man, all facts, they depend on facts only. There is no social relationship. But the circus is a place of affection, a place of love, kindness, solidarity. When someone is in need for help, they all help him. Where Slurry is first among equals, and Slurry the manager is one of them. He is ready to help other members of the circus. Horses and acrobats dominate impressions of the circus, in contrast to the machines in Cocktown. They are dealing with animals, and acrobats, they are working different when we talk, for example, deal with the machines in Cocktown. The pantomime, you know pantomime? You have idea about what is the meaning of pantomime? Pantomime is the performance without speaking, without saying something, only through gestures and signs. This is called pantomime. The pantomime acts in Slurry's repertoire link the circus with the theater, and so bring the world of the arts within his philosophy of amusement. In contrast to the mechanical and heartless society described in Cocktown. The Cocktown is a mechanical town that is empty of solidarity, affection, love, heartless. And culture is broken in this town. There is no culture. And here some critics point out that the difference between the circus people and industrial community is reinforced, is emphasized by the circus jargon, which means the language of the circus people. Why? Because because he's separated from the real society, Bounderby finds that the language of the circus is puzzling, as if he is reading what? Hearing a new language. And here we come to the tones of the people. also contrasted. For example, bounded by voice or tone is rough and unfeeling, but slurry spoken cogently, gently, tenderly, than bounded by or grind. And even his use of the term cackler. Cackler means performer, the man who has done something in the circus. It prepares for this very effective cackling at the end of the book 3. Cackling here means that you laugh from the deep of depth of your heart. Cackling. In addition to these 3 chapters, I have attached description of two characters in the same file, PDF file. And at this point, we are reaching to our end of the lecture. If you have any question, any comment, any addition.
Yes, Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, Zainab, please.
Where sorry, I have got a grant, and Gerard, when he's sick, he take him to care her,
Yes.
and he
Yes.
he was doing to say something good.
Yes. Yes. You mean Sissy is taken by grind?
What was mean it?
Yes. Just to tell you the story. Sissy's father, who's working in the circus, suddenly disappeared and takes with him his dog, the Merry Leg. His name, the dog's name is Merry Leg. And no one knows where does he go. So, you know, Sissy becomes alone in the circus, and Mr. Grind comes and takes her with him to take care of her. And this is a very good gesture. I told you previously that Mr. Grind believes in fact philosophy, but still he's a loving father. He is better than Bounder By. Bounder By is the real villain of the novel, not like Grand Grind. Grand Grind has some sort of affection, not really apparent, but it is revealed in the stand, in the situation of Sissy when he takes her his home. Okay. Any other question?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yes, well, yes.
If Mr. Bounder, as you said, has a mental and physical disorder, how could he create a factory and become a rich man?
Zainab, please, yes. Switched off the mic. Sorry, Wyatt. Just could you say again?
Okay. If Mr. Bounder, as you said, has a mental and physical disorder, how could he create a factory and become a rich man?
No, not Mr. Grind. Mrs.
Mr. Bounder.
Wyatt. Mrs.
I mean, Mr. Bounder by.
Miss. You mean Mr. Bounder By? Yeah,
Yes.
he's a liar, and this is the secret. This is the secret, and we have no idea how does he get his money.
Okay.
How does he become wealthy? And I give you example from our politicians, the corruption here nowadays in Iraq. The politicians, within days, he becomes what? A billionaire, very wealthy. And when you ask him, for example, he's going to tell you that he's working hard during his life, and you know, the same story. They are similar to Bounder By.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you, Wyatt. Again, a question, comment, addition.
دكتور سؤال يعني طلب.
Yes. Yes,
أستاذ
please.
ممكن تنزل المحاضرة يعني قبل لا تشرحها؟
I can't. Zainab,
Why?
simply because this is literature. This is literature. يعني I cannot download because I'm going to cut what is appropriate for you.
Doctor, we have
يعني
an idea in general, nothing on specific. We read.
there are Zainab, there are certain sites which explains the novel comprehensively. يعني ما ممكن لان انا من اللي اخذ المحاضرات من المصدر ما ممكن انه انا انطيكم كل الموجود بالمصدر. اكو يعني قضايا
تختلف يعني
تحليلات اعلى، سمحي، تحليلات وشرح اعلى من مستواكم. يعني انا ليش ادوخكم بشغله انتم في غنى عنها؟ هاي وحده. ثاني شيء بالنسبه اللي انطيه هنا يعني اغلبها هسه بالتسجيل هذا تحليل interpretation analysis، تحليل للروايه واحداثها. ممكن انه ما موجود، ما تلقونه يعني بالبي دي اف. اما كنظره عامه انت بالنسبه لك هسه تريد تحضر، تريد تقرا على سبيل المثال احنا وصلنا وين هسه؟ يا شابتر السابع، مو صحيح؟
yes.
السابع. ممكن انه انت هسه تروح على سبيل المثال تروح الموقع سبارك نوتس، كليف نوتس، اي نوتس، اشكال المواقع تدخل عليها تلقي بالنسبه يعني حاكين على الشابتر ومحللينه وذاكرين الثيمز وذاكرين الكاركترز. تقدر انت انه تهيئ نفسك تقرا هذا الشابتر او واللي بعده. مو شرط انه انا المحاضره اللي انطيك اياها الا نفسها يعني انا انطيك اياها. انت تقدر تهيئ نفسك لان اكو عموميات بالموضوع، اكو عموميات هي نفسها متشابهه. يعني اذا شخصيات على سبيل المثال جرايند باوندر باي، ماكو موقع او مصدر يختلف بها. موجودين ذول الشخصيات، ولكن التحليل هنا راح يختلف. انا قلت لكم سابقا الادب مو مثل الجرامر، مو مثل اللغه. يعني هي شغله او قضيه ثابته بالنسبه للنحو واللغه. اما الادب فهو يعني open ended subject to analysis and interpretation. يعني
أستاذ أنا قصدي يعني إحنا ماخذين فكرة عنها يعني، بس ما نقدر نحفظها كلها.
لا مو قصدي تحفظينها زينب. يعني هسه انا من على سبيل المثال من اسئله ماكو واحد مبين انهم محضر. يعني انتم هسه قد انا عندي 67 طالب هسه داخلين بالكلاس، يعني 2 أو 3 اللي يسولفون. يعني مثلا على سبيل المثال مثلا باكر عقبه هاي يعني ال 67 ال 3 64 ال 64 هم يعني مثل ما يقولون الى حجه ويجي طالبني يقول لي استاذ انا مالت المشاركه اريد الدرجه. مستحيل. وليش انا اقول لكم يعني تكون واضح وياكم؟ مستحيل. يعني لازم يعني انت شوي تعب نفسك تقرا تهيئ وتشارك. اوكي. الماده موجوده هسه انتم بس تدخلون هنا أنا اكتب بس هارد تايمز راح تطلع لك آلاف المواقع بيها تحليلات وغيرها. انت اقرا اللي عليها وين وصل، تابع وياي وتعال شارك. اللي راح تقوله مو خطا واللي راح تضيفه مو خطا، ولكن يحسب لك مشاركه.
أستاذ يعني هسه احنا قارن على مصدر.
اوكي تمام.
أستاذ يعني هسه احنا على غير مصدر من النت، يعني على الموقع أنا قرأت مع سبارك نوتس. بس يعني ما قدرت أشارك يعني بشي، لأن لمن أخذت المحاضرة اليوم للصباحي يعني لقيتها تختلف عن الشي اللي قرأته أني. عندي هم من غير مصدر كتاب اشتريته، بس يعني بشنو يعني أريد أشارك يعني تسألنا أسئلة يعني عن المحاضرة الجاية.
يعني لازم كل اللي جايب له مصدر يقول لي بالمصدر مالته واسئله من المصدر مالته. ريام الاسئله عامه، الاسئله عامه والادب.
يعني احنا بمعلوماتنا نشارك، يعني المعلومات اللي اخذناها احنا من هذا المصدر نشارك فيها.
شاركيها، اي نعم، ليش لا؟ هو ليش انا ايش قايل لكم هسه؟ Do you have any question, comment, addition؟ عندك اضافه قل لي بيها، شنو الاضافه اللي عندك؟ انا يا ريت اسمع من عندكم. عندك اضافه حتى لو احنا ذكرناها ريام، حتى لو احنا ذكرتها انا في يعني المحاضره، مو مشكله انه انت تعيدينها اللي حسب قراءتك او فهمك لها.
نعم أستاذ.
ماكو مشكله. يعني انت لا تتردد انه انت قريت في موضوع، مثلا تقول انا اليوم استاذ انا قريت بهذا المصدر او قريت هيك وهيك وهيك، هاي تعتبر اضافه ومشاركه. براكتس، تمرنوا تتحدثون انجليزي. انت داخل انجليزي مرحله ثالثه وما تعرف، يعني ممكن انه يجوز ما تقدر تصرف انجليزي. ليش؟ سبب بسيط، الممارسه، قله الممارسه، قله الممارسه والتردد والخوف والخجل ذن هواي. ولكن يعني متى ما تجرأت وسولفت مره اثنين شاركت، الخوف والخجل هاي كلها راح تروح. حتى الاخطاء انه انت اللي ممكن تخطئها هي طبيعيه جدا، كلنا احنا نخطأ، ولكن انت شجع وشارك. انا قايل لكم اياها يمكن من الاول او من الثاني. يعني جزء من جماليه اي لغه انه انت تمارسها، تتحدث بيها. اذا انت ساكت شنو الفائده؟ ماكو كل فائده انه تجي انت للامتحان هاي هي تقرا، يعني كان همك انه انت فقط النجاح. نجحت بعدين اي، واذا شنو المشكله؟ مثلا فصلت لك في موقف في غيره، ما اعرف. So if you have any addition from any source, you can just say it here. I may have not that kind of information you are going to tell me. I may not come across your information. I'm not omniscient. يعني أنا ما أعرف كل شيء. يعني كل المصادر اللي بالعالم موجودة أنا مار عليها وأعرف إيش كاتبين على الهارد تايمز. No, maybe you'll give me a new information about the novel in general. Okay. Again, if you have any question, any comment, any addition.
Yes, دكتور.
بس دقيقة، العفو أخت. دكتور، اعطينا مساحة للإضافة. يعني هو الأدب بصورة عامة يعتمد على شلون مثلا، يعني تشابتر كل من وفكرته، هي على حكايتك مواقع وتحليلات، بس هي تصب بنفس الموضوع. اعطينا يعني شلون مساحة للإضافة، يعني حتى كل من يلقي يعني شلون التحليل.
يا ريت it is all yours. ولكن عدي عيني بالنسبه للاضافه في الادب هو open ended، ولكن احنا من نضيف ممكن انه انت تنطيني رايك
الشابتر المعين، كل من مثلا كل طالب حتى يعني يحسب له مشاركه، هيك الفكره. يعني
هو انا هذا اللي اريده. يلا هسه قولوا لي، انا اكيد ما اقول لكم اني كويستشن اني
ان شاء الله كل من
المحاضره الجايه يا الله ان شاء الله. خلينا نشوف هسه احنا ان شاء الله. اوكي تمام. نعم. منو بعد؟ نور.
نعم دكتور. نعم أستاذ. دكتور، بالنسبة للشخصيات قريتهن بالنسبة للPDF اللي نزلته دكتور، يعني شوية صعبات، عادة أخذ مصدر من النت يعني. نعم. مسموح به
بالنسبة للشخصيات ضوعيني، بالنسبة للشخصيات ممكن من أي مصدر، ولكن خليني أقول لك على المصدر. هذا المصدر اللي أنا هسه اللي أنطيكم من عنده، أنزل من عنده، هذا ما متاح يعني مجاني. أنا اشتري رايه صراحة. صديقي بالخارج هو اللي اشترى لي الرجال، أنا وصيته اشترى لي، تعرف لسهولته ولعمق تحليله. يعني مصدر ممتاز اللي يسمونها هم السلسله يورك نوتس، تقدرون تدخلون عليها بالنت. يورك نوتس سيريز، يمكن هو ب 22 باوند، ما اعرف، يمكن 50 يعني نص ورقه او غيره. بس القصدي انه هو لأعماركم لمراحلكم، هو لمرحلة الكلية. أنت بكيفك. بالنسبة أنا أتحدث عن الشخصيات فقط. الشخصيات إذا تريدون تحبون من أي مصدر ثاني تقرون عنها كيفكم، أنتم أحرار. تريدون تقرون من المصدر اللي أنا راح أعطيكم إياه تباعا، فأنتم أيضا أحرار فقط بالشخصيات، بينما البقية لا، نعتمد على. بالإضافة أنت إذا تريد تطور نفسك يا ريت أنه تطور نفسك وتقول أنا أقرأ مثلا من مصدر ثاني، يعني هذا يكون يعني شيء إضافي إلك. أنت حتى من تكتب راح تنوع، من تكتب راح تكون عندك مثل ما يقولون خزين، تقدر تضيف، مو فقط انه اعتمد على مثلا محاضره. على سبيل المثال استاذ حميد، انا اضيف فوق محاضره استاذ حميد اللي هذا اللي اعرفه، وانت ما طول قاري ليش تخليه؟ كتبه ما طول انه يعني ماشي ويا موضوعك. نعم. ريان.
تمام، شكرا دكتور.
كل الهلا.
I have a question.
نعم. Yes.
Well, Mr. Gradgrind sympathy with Sissy. I thought Mr. Gradgrind is strict character.
Yes.
And Sissy.
Yes.
Yes.
We have said in the last moments of the lecture that Mr. Grind, we are introduced for the characters without any introduction. You remember in the beginning of the novel?
Yes.
يعني we are all introduced to the characters, but there is reference for Mr. Gradgrind in the first or the second chapter that he is what? Loving father. These two words give us as readers that he is different from Bounderby, though he believes in the same philosophy, believes in the fact utilitarianism, or he has a model school for teaching fact and science, statistics and figures. But I think that since he has children in the same age as Sissy, especially Louisa, he feels that she needs to be taken care of. He sympathizes with Sissy and accepts to take her his home. And this is, I guess, the strongest reason for this. He's tough, but he's not like Mr. Bounderby. And you know, he and Mr. Bounderby goes for the circus, and Bounderby refuses to take her, but Gradgrind volunteers to take Sissy his home. Okay, I hope that I am clear. Rian?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question, comment, or addition? Objection? Okay. Before leaving, in respect to the recording, please, you know the idea.
يس دكتور. هذا
دمرتونا دمار طبعا. لحظة خليني انزل الغيابات. اوقف التسجيل. يعني انا كل محاضرة اقول لكم وماكو تنسون.